Arachnophobes beware! This week's episode may not be for you. Proceed at your own peril. Welcome to another episode of Monster Monday from the Ready to Die channel. This series explores the design of a creature I have built for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. The stat block for this creature can be found over on the Monster Monday blog, as well as the Twitter and Discord, all of which are linked below. A few weeks ago, I presented the Hui as a partially original monster, a creature from myth rather than a game or show or other such source. This gave me a bit more room to play around with its design and abilities. It allowed me to have a broader interpretation of it than most creatures I build. But it was still something I ultimately had to kind of follow a map for. This week, however, I go a step further and present an entirely original creation, the Scarathax. Since this is an entirely new creature lacking any lore besides that which I create for it, I want to briefly discuss that. Scarathaxes, derisively known as web drakes, are the remnants of ancient dragons, who came under the influence of a deity of spiders, insects, and other creatures that crawl in the earth. Some joined willingly, while others fell to the venom of the upstart god, coming under her thrall. Both became prized servitors of the sovereign of swarms, and wreaked havoc in the name of their foul god until one day, the might that they were imbued with vanished. In my own setting, this was due to a change of heart by their patron god, which the Scarathaxes refused to follow, but could just as easily be due to their god being slain, imprisoned, or turning on its minions for some other reason. Regardless, in the centuries since, the Scarathaxes have languished, their powers waning and forces scattered as they turn to desperate plots to regain their former glory. Design-wise, I wanted a creature that mixed the classic abilities of a spider with the might and menace of a dragon. Part of that was also being able to pair it with other spider creatures for allies in fights against it. Unfortunately, the classic giant spider, the spider swarm, and even the web lurker are all level 1 or lower, and I definitely wanted this creature to pack a bigger punch. Fortunately, there are a few spider creatures in the level 5 and 6 range, as well as some outliers in 11 and 13, so I decided to design the Scarathax to bridge that gap as a level 8 creature. While I feel that spiders are often associated with agility or at least some degree of dexterity, the high abilities of the Scarathax are its strength and constitution. The latter of these two actually shows some of my roots in Pathfinder 1st Edition, where web and poison DCs are constitution based. It still uses a moderate dexterity, but has lower mental scores. While more than many of the creatures I've built as of late, the Scarathaxes fell to the manipulations of a deity long ago, and I think that still echoes within them. Whereas most spiders don't seem to have great eyesight, the Scarathax is a dragon, and has a high perception bonus while also possessing the web sense found on many spiders. As a creature that prefers wrapping up its prey and feasting at its leisure, the Scarathax has a high athletics to pin people down, and which I actually reduced during the playtest. It also has a moderate stealth, since it, like many spiders, likes to lie in wait for its prey. Protected by chitinous shell and scale alike, the Scarathax utilizes a high armor class while only having a moderate pool of hit points. With its ability to lock people down, even at range, it can extend fights, and did so quite capably in the test without feeling like it was dragging, leading to the use of these defenses. It has a high fortitude, I need to make more monsters that don't, with a low reflex and will. I feel a little bad giving it immunity to poison, because I feel like that's overdone at this point, but it also feels natural for this particular creature. All three of the Scarathax's attacks use a high attack bonus, but its web deals no damage, its claws deal low damage, and even its jaws deal only moderate damage. This is due to the other effects each of them inflict. Like many spiders, its ranged web attack causes targets to become immobilized, unless they escape against a high DC. Its claws are agile, but also have the grab ability, allowing the Scarathax to capture prey. Finally, its jaw can deliver its Scarathax venom, which deals slowly amping poison damage with a high DC, but has a more important effect. The crippling of clumsy and enfeebled mean that it will be harder for a victim to escape any of its ways of tying people up. Now, let's get into the fun part, the abilities. We'll start off with some of the abilities I borrowed from other creatures. Firstly, spider speak can be found on the web lurker, and this will let it communicate with its minions. While the Scarathax lacks traditional wings, it can spin webbing between its spider legs, and can use these to glide short distances. Most Scarathaxes prefer layering in caves, so they don't often find a use for this, but it was definitely something I wanted to include for this creature. Draconic Frenzy reaches into Scarathax's Draconic Heritage, and is a pretty standard 2-action ability that grants 3 attacks at normal map. It follows this up with Draconic Momentum, which recharges a Scarathax's webbing spray on a critical hit, since that replaces its traditional Draconic Breath weapon. I'd always intended the Scarathax to be the derivative of a true dragon, and I knew I wanted a breath weapon for it, but I couldn't settle on what I wanted. I considered a stream of poison, a vomit swarm in breath weapon form, or merely a blast of webbing. Ultimately, I settled on a combination of all three of these with its webbing spray. It launches this in a cone with effects similar to its web trap, though it has an extreme DC since its initial effects aren't too debilitating. Immobilize is far from the worst condition and doesn't even reduce a target's defenses, and a successful save only reduces a creature's speed temporarily. But a critical failure does see a creature become restrained, which can get brutal. Notably, this extreme DC didn't actually help much in the playtest, as everybody either crushed the save or immediately had freedom of movement cast upon them. I'm not bitter, I'm happy to eat up a 4th level spell slot, but this did influence me to further involve the degrees of success in the design. If an enemy finds that they can't escape the webbing by the end of their turn, they are beset upon by magically manifested spiders, a la Vomit Swarm, that inject the victim with poison damage. Once the Scarathax has its prey immobilized or restrained, it can close in on a juicy target and scoop them up with its cocoon ability, based on the way that spiders will wrap up their prey. It is somewhat limited in use, only able to be used when the Scarathax hasn't already used an attack action in a round, following similar wording as the Astrodaemon's Devour Soul. This means that it most likely has to use it at the start of its turn, after moving in on a target, or, if it's lucky, immediately following its webbing spray. Since this ability makes a creature restrained, which is a pretty powerful condition, and it doesn't require any sort of check or roll, I wanted to make sure that the Scarathax couldn't hit a creature with its claw, automatically grab them, and then make them restrained on a single roll. I suppose with the remaster coming out, this is kind of a moot point or less of a concern, but I haven't fully transitioned to those rules yet since they haven't been fully published. Once the Scarathax does have a victim webbed up, it can use its absconding skitter to escape with them, dragging them back to the nest to feast at its leisure. This is a fun but simple ability with similar effects to those seen on the Rock and other big creatures. Last in the Scarathax's considerable arsenal is its reaction, Snatch Prey. This particular ability is inspired by and based on net-casting spiders, who, rather than setting up a web and waiting, will spin a webbing net that they use to try to capture prey. This plays into the ambush predator aspects of the Scarathax, while also adding some unique tactics to it. The Scarathax may retreat from a fight, just to hide and snatch up the first fool to chase after it. This ability functions in conjunction quite nicely with its cocoon, as the Scarathax can use Snatch Prey out of turn, and then immediately cocoon up its victim at the start of its next turn. I'm very excited to talk about the first truly original monster on the channel, but I think I'm going to have to call it here. Silent and stealthy, the sinister Scarathax stalks survivors, springing snares and snatching up souls to serve as supper for the swarm. This could serve as a nice mid-level boss, accompanied by ogre spiders or other minions as it plots a return to its former glory, or could be serving a greater force, such as a Jorogumo. You can check out the Monster Monday blog and Twitter for the stat blocks, or hop on the Discord to join the monster making and general tabletop discussions. These posts also include a PF1E version of the monster, along with a D&D 5e conversion. If you would like to support future original monsters, consider picking up a Monday Monster book linked below. And please let me know what you think of this creature and what others you might like to see. Thanks for watching and have a monstrous Monday.